Hey everybody, we are live with Plus One EXP's Roll for Content channel. We are a weird little brand that multi-classes in tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. We are here today for another episode of Prestige Class. Prestige Class is my chance to sit down with designers in the indie RPG scene. Some of them do straight indie games, other ones do OSR, other ones do content for other systems, and just learn a little bit from them about what their experience has been, get to know them a little bit better, and hopefully have them impart some wisdom from their experiences with you. So if you have any questions and you're out there watching live, I know we've already got 12 people with us on stream, go ahead and let us know who you are, where you're watching from, and if you have any questions for Sarah or Daniel from Planar Compass. We're going to be talking about what it's like to co-design, what it's like to design for old school Essentials system, and then kind of their journey through doing Dreamhaven / Planar Compass 1, last Zine Quest 2, their experiences this time around, and everything in between. So Zara Fint is very excited in the chat. Says, "Whoa, look at those sexy beasts bucket."
Oh, no.
We'll just let that hang in the air.
Yeah,
and so
that's the tone.
That's our bucket. We're aware of who that bucket is.
It's been really fun just chatting with you all over the last few weeks. You know, I saw Sarah post something out, and I'll be honest, like anytime I see anybody who isn't a white dude in a design group talking about their designs, I'm always like, how can I help promote your project? That's all I want. And I do it to all the white dudes also, so white dudes, don't worry. But it was great to learn like about the co-design, just chat with you all a little bit over the course of the last week. Finally wrangle a time that we can all get together to have this conversation. So I'm super excited. People didn't come to hear me talk though. They came to hear you guys talk and learn from your wisdom. So rather than me introduce you, I'd love to have you all introduce yourself. Sarah, why don't you go first? Tell people who you are, what you do, maybe what your role is on the team, and where is the best place to find your work online?
I'm Sarah Brunt. I co-designed Planar Compass with Dan. The best place to find me online, I'm on Twitter at Sarah Eliza Brunt, and planarcompass.com, where all of our creations are housed. I do a lot of the world building for the zine, and I do a lot of maybe not quite I do a lot of like sideways and out of the vein like questioning with Dan, and I incorporate ideas that are coming from left field. That's kind of what I contribute to the zine. A lot of asking, why are things like this and why can't they be different?
Yeah.
We'll come back to that later. Dan, tell us who you are, what you do on the team, and then where people can find you online.
Sure. I am Dan Wilson, or DM Wilson by my pen name. You can find me on Twitter at B3L7 or our website, planarcompass.com. I work with Sarah, and together we kind of craft our vision of this world. Sarah does a lot of the kind of really creative world bending, and then I often will do the adaptation into the rules system. So we kind of bounce back and forth off of each other until we arrive at the destination.
Awesome.
I don't want to interrupt you, but I want to tell you everybody that at one point Dan said that I was like the Miyazaki to his David Lynch. So maybe that describes.
Yeah. When he said that, did you know what he meant? That's the real question.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I tend to go a little bit darker with the material, and she tends to go a little bit more whimsical, which I think it's a good pairing, though.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And it's a good place to be, especially for OSC. Like absolutely, where you've got tons of dark themes and then tons of just kind of ridiculous stuff built in and layered into the system. So I'm super excited to kind of just dive into that with you. And again, what it's like to design on a team also too, because right now, I mean, like, I think most people in some way, shape, or form design on a team. There's very few people who are actually like, hey, I can do the art and can do the layout and can do the writing and can do the everything. Now, some people can do a lot of that or even most of that, but usually we're all kind of bending on somebody else at one point in time. So I think it's something that even if somebody's a solo designer for the most part, knowing how to work in collaboration is good. And then I've got a collaboration right now that I usually work with my team by myself, but it's actually Plus One and Terrible Games are partnering on our project right now. So John's been a great collaborator. We've done small projects before, but this will be a fun kind of learning experience for me also too. So, Downifer says that y'all better say some good stuff about them. And so, if y'all are watching and have any questions, let us know. If you want to just keep on heckling, that's also fine too. Like I'll make sure.
So that particular heckler is definitely our lead artist.
Yeah.
That's Chris Downey, who has made the incredible art for our first zine and is our lead artist for the second issue. And I don't have anything but nice things to say about you, you jerk.
We'll give people a little taste of that art right here. Here's some of the campaign page. So people get a look at that. Go ahead, while we're just kind of at the top right here, go ahead. We'll talk about the project more specifically later, but go ahead and give us kind of the elevator pitch for Planar Compass 2 specifically. I mean, you're probably going to have to touch on Planar Compass 1 a little bit to get there, but give us what 2 is bringing to the world.
So the whole thing about Planar Compass issue 2 is about traveling between planes via sailing the astral sea. And the astral sea is kind of this mix between the classic D&D astral sea and some of this new stuff we're doing where it's got a little bit of the afterlife mixed in, as well as it serves as the nexus of the multiverse. So the veil between the astral sea and the other planes is very thin. So a lot of times that separation will wear thin, and like say the plane of elemental fire might spill into the astral sea and influence the area that you're in. So issue 1, also set on the astral sea, gives us the island of Dreamhaven to serve as either a one-off adventure for kind of low prep, or perhaps a home base for a planes hopping campaign. It's supposed to be in the middle of the astral sea, so it's in the middle of the multiverse. So all the interplanar trade and sailing is going through this island. Now, issue 2 is us expanding it out beyond the island and out into the sea, where you're going to face the dangers and the potential there. And then the goal is eventually, with the future issues, to kind of do 1 or 2 planes per issue and kind of build out the multiverse from there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to hear more about you guys' plans for development in the future. Sarah, can you tell me a little bit about how all this started? How did you and Dan come to start working together?
We were in a groom's party together, and like one of our friends, the guy that was getting married, was like came to me and was like, "Oh, I reconnected with a high school friend, and she's married to this guy, and he runs D&D." And Ben and I were musical theater nerds together, so he knew that I was looking for some kind of like role-playing dramatic outlet, and that was like me discovering Dungeons and Dragons, because I spent all of my high school years trying to find somebody who would run Dungeons and Dragons because I didn't want to do math. Not knowing that there were all these things out there that didn't involve as much math. But so the next thing I knew, I'm in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign with Dan. Dan had given me a character, like he gave us all a list of ideas and things to do with it. And what I spat back at him was Google Forms and like Google Sheets has a template for a pet resume. And I wrote my character's bio
forgot
as a
about
pet
that.
resume. Oh no, I'll never forget about Lamorak's
Yeah.
pet resume. So like we're like a couple of sessions in, and Dan was just like, "Do you want to write together? We should write together." And I was like, "Yeah, sure, why not? We should do that." So like we were writing a comic book, and then one day I show up to a session, and he's got like he slides this across the table, and he goes, "We should be making an old school essentials zine." Like so, and Planar Compass, well, Dreamhaven, like came out of that, and then now we have a Zine Quest 3 zine that is like garnering a lot of attention, and we're very excited about. Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit about this before. I first became aware of Dreamhaven, which we talked a little bit about the name change before. I think that's a good fun story for people to hear also too. But came across Dreamhaven last year in Zine Quest, and it was before we were doing anything on +1. Like the brand was kind of slowly in soft launch for us, but none of the content or anything else like that. I was just backing a ton of zines. I got to Super Backer. I created a new account at the beginning of Zine Quest last year and was at Super Backer by week 2. Which only means in case anybody's wondering, little trick tip here. You have to back 10 projects in a year, 25 projects in a year for $10 or more in order to get Super Backer. It's a very easy algorithm. That's all it takes. And so if you want that, button next year's, go back, Planar Compass right now if you have it, and back Repugnant RPG on Monday, and you're going to be, 10% of the way there basically. And
That's
so,
right.
but yeah, and so, but I was kind of like, I'm just going to back as many zines that aren't funding for whatever, like PDF or $1 even, just to help boost the algorithm, support the creator. So anytime somebody asked me online, like I was like, let's do it. Like no zine left behind. And I think I backed you guys for the PDF because you guys were close to the finish line, but not quite there by the end of your time. But this year, you guys are already at like 11K on your $400 funding goal. It's a year later, and it's a very, very different story. So let's dive into a little bit about kind of the move from being Dreamhaven to being Planar Compass, which is just a simple conversation, but I'd love to hear a little bit about how y'all navigated it.
We kind of like woke up one morning to find that Dreamhaven wasn't us anymore. It was a brand new gaming company with some very impressive, important people, and we had as a very small operation with very limited means, we had to decide very quickly if this was something that we were going to try to move against or if we were just going to try to move on from it. And I think honestly we've got a name that matches our product better. It's just not like a bumper sticker. Like Dreamhaven was so much easier to like imagine on shirts and stuff. Planar Compass, you have to explain. You walk around with that on your shirt and somebody's gonna be like, but what?
Well, actually, I don't know. You guys' logo, I think is super sharp. I think maybe we have it on. Let me see if we have it on the opening title graphic. No, we've got the Planar Compass like header logo on there. I think you guys' current logo with the kind of the different planes going into the kind of box on top of each other. I think it's super sharp. I love it, and I would wear that on.
That's another Chris Downey.
That's a
Chris Downey logo.
So, you guys just kind of took that in stride. Like it was something where it's like, here's like, because the concept of like, hey, we're the little guy, we could fight this and probably get some, like you theoretically could win, though, whether it be worth pursuing winning in that situation or not is questionable, but you could have gotten a lot of attention or publicity, but you guys just kind of chose to let it go, which I love. Like one of the things I love, just kind of having observed each of you creepily on the internet for the last week and a half. You guys are very relaxed. Like this is a fun project and you want it to stay fun. And that seems to come across pretty clearly in the way that y'all, both your personalities and the way you approach things. So was that a big part of the decision, or where did kind of that choice to just kind of say, yeah, we're just going to make that shift come from?
Yeah, I think we both talked about it a lot because obviously the name and the vision we created meant a lot to us. And Dreamhaven, I think, was perfect for that particular setting. I originally thought of Dreamhaven kind of like Greyhawk or Blackmore, where like it was the name of a place in the setting, but also the name of the setting, and we went back and forth about it, and we both kind of decided that we kind of wanted to avoid being attached to any kind of negativity, even if it was theoretically strategically advantageous. We wanted to be positive.
We didn't want to be that company.
Yeah, we wanted people to have a positive impression of us, and not be stressed out about things. So we thought we already had the name Planar Compass because that was the name of the company we founded to sell the zine. And then we're like, well, actually, I think it almost works better if we're thinking about it as a plains hopping zine.
That's awesome.
It could be the guide across the plains.
Yeah, no. Like I said, I love it. I think it's an interesting, and again, it's those choices. Like that stuff happens in small indie development all the time. People pick the same names for project, or you've got a company name that's somebody else's game name, or somebody else launches something new and you did it a decade ago, and you have to have a real conversation about, hey, yeah, does this matter? Is there confusion? Like what's going on here?
Right.
And we're all picking from some of the same kind of central themes and tropes, and so it can be challenging. I was playing Never Going Home last night with Brandon Caden from What Ink Games, and it's like a Weird War One, but their system is called the +1 system that they use in that game. And I was like, I love that name. Like it wasn't even like there's no confusion, right? Like I didn't create that. Like and then, but I mean, it's just like whatever. Like I took the name because it's a common trope in D&D, but there was nobody else in the space who was using it. And so for me, like we're all pulling from those same things. It's really easy to end up in that. And I think just saying like, hey, we're going to have the conversation. Maybe we're just going to say, hey, like, that's fine. We have these other pieces we can draw from and move forward, and people kind of have to make those choices. So I think kudos to you guys for just saying
it was important that the name wasn't all that our company was anyway. Right. I think that in hindsight, the hardest part about it was that we were in the midst of this pandemic, and we've been, we're doing all of this work digitally. Like we when we started writing, we were writing together. At times we would have meetings, we would write together, and we haven't done like any of that. It's all been digital, even though we're in a very small radius, like we're in the same area. The hardest part about having the company, like the name suddenly get blown up was not being able to like have a beer and commiserate about it. I had to drive over to Dan's house, and like I put beer on his porch, walked all the way to the sidewalk, and went, "Come outside, I'm upset."
Yeah.
I love that. So let's talk about that. What have been some of the, besides not just being able to drink beer in the same room, not pandemic specific, but what have been some of the things you've learned most is just about the process of working together?
I think it's a lot easier than having to do it all yourself, because anytime that I'm stuck, I can just be like, does this idea work? Is there another area that I should be working in? Like, if something becomes difficult to move on, there's always somebody else to like shift the perspective of what you might be writing, what you might be working on, and what area of the zine we might be trying to digest.
Yeah.
So it really, I think, makes it so much easier.
Absolutely. I think what she says about like writer's block is so true, because like when you have somebody that you can just bounce ideas off, that's so invaluable. When you're by yourself and you're stuck, what are you going to do? You know what I mean? But when you have, I can say to Sarah, I was like, I don't know how this works. How do you think it works? And then she might give me 4 ideas, and maybe I don't take any of them, or maybe it gets my brain rolling. And we do that for each other all the time. So I think it's really invaluable. And we take each other's ideas and we enrich them, in a way that they wouldn't be if it was just one person.
Yeah.
It adds depth to it.
That's awesome. Do you think some of that came out of having played together first, like rather than just kind of randomly deciding we're going to make something? Do you think some of that maybe generated from this natural kind of give and take of play and GM and like any of that?
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think that's a valid point, because I think we're used, because that is the loop, right? It's so one person says something and says, "What do you do?" And the other person answers. that's almost exactly what the writing process kind of is as a team. It's a call and response. So it makes total sense, I think, what you just said.
And so I know you guys, your system is old school essentials, but you guys did you guys start playing Dungeons and Dragons together, or was that just like common parlance? Or do you guys go back and forth between the two? Where is that shift from D&D to OSC?
Started with 5e, because that was what one of the two things that brought me back into D&D was 5e. The other one was me playing in a 1e campaign. So that all happened at the same time. And then so everyone was pretty comfortable and happy with 5e, I think, and we were having a good time. And then I, as a referee, wanted more. So I began to, like, kind of put my feelers out there and explore, and I got really into everything going on in the OSR and the indie scene, but OSC just like slapped me across the face just because of the quality of it. And just it was the first, as a referee and doing this all these years, it was the first book I picked up and was like, I could use this at the table. Like, I'm ready to go. Usually I feel like I need to read it and take notes and digest it, but OSE made me feel instantly comfortable, and no other book had. So when it came time for us to make a zine, I was like, this is the one I want to write for. I know you're not super comfortable with it, but I guarantee you that you will be comfortable with it. And it inspires me. So
I'm just actually gently working my way to Zara Fint's question. Can you explain the rules of OSC compared to the rules of Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, and how players can adjust? Which could be 100% honest, but could be a mild troll. It could be both at the same time.
Not sure.
I think we established that that's bucket, and mild troll might be like a really great descriptor of our friend Bucket.
But any advice for people who are thinking about checking out OSC, who have only played D&D 5th edition before, and what some of the player differences they might think about might be?
I really like the old school primer. It's a short PDF. I think the biggest
Apocrypha, as they call it.
Yes. Ben Milton and a bunch of other, quote unquote founders of the OSR kind of put that together, that kind of address this question that comes up all the time. I think there's a couple things about all the old games, is that if you're talking about the D&D ecosystem, they're all super compatible, which I think excites a lot of people, because they get into it and they find out, like, there's like 30 years of content and it's all compatible. And those of us who came up, I started playing with 3rd edition, so we're all kind of used to, like, 3rd edition comes out and then 4th edition comes out, and then we need to figure out how to adapt if we want to intertwine, and it becomes like just one obstacle when you get into this old stuff, and it's like there's almost very little work to make it work in between. If you're coming into it, I would say there's a lot of misconceptions about it. I think a lot of people think it's more difficult or more complicated, but it's actually simpler, and deceptively simple. The characters are very, very minimalist, so there's not a lot of customization, which I think turns off a lot of modern players. But I think if you're willing to be open-minded, you can find a wealth of opportunity in the minimalism of the characters, because there's actually less telling you how to play the character, which can be really great if you're open to it.
Yeah. Is there any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that the really like exciting and easy thing to do, though, is just to, you don't have to downshift immediately into that. You don't have to go and like take your 5e campaign and say, okay, forget this, we're all going to play OSC now. Or like you can say, like, you can take things from, lots of different OSE and OSR stuff and just shift it into, or apply it to your 5e campaign in order to just like dip your toe in. And that allows you to like open up to whole other world. And eventually, if like you're interested in trying the whole campaign that way, you can. But like we had in our 5e campaign, was it Wormskin that you took
Yeah.
the mushroom stuff from?
Yeah.
We were in an elven forest for a really long time, and I only know it was a really long time because the phase of the moon didn't change, and I had a item that was dependent on the sun. But the so we had like all these mushrooms that were available to us, and I didn't know until we were working on Dreamhaven that was like, oh yeah, no, I pulled that from Wormskin, have a look at this. And I'm like, oh, that's where all those mushrooms came from. But like you don't have to, you don't have to just completely change what you're doing entirely. And it's really freeing to be able to just mix and match and take things. It's just the same as any other kind of homebrew.
Well, and let's talk a little bit about Planar Compass, specifically Planar Compass 1, kind of to start. But one of the things I noticed over the course of the last couple months is it was really funny. Somebody said something about Planar Compass, and I think it was specifically somebody was looking for information about like plane traveling, specifically like what about the astral plane. And I think there was even a conversation around psionics that it came up around the same time, and people really dig the approach that you guys had to some of that as far as the best way to incorporate it into OSC. And so the last 3 months, I just come and seen it come up again, and I clicked on it and I was like, man, this looks so familiar. And I didn't know about the name change. I was like, I could have sworn I had backed a project almost just like this and just got it in a PDF.
Yeah.
And I just, hadn't spent a lot of time with it. And so, but I also just started playing Old School Essentials in the course of the last couple of months. So it was like, hey, I love this project. It looks cool. And then with the name change, it just didn't click at all until I saw Planar Compass 2. And I was like, no, wait, this is the same thing that I backed underneath a different name. So it's cool to know that I wasn't just going insane for one thing. But no, again, for the last couple of months, there's been just a lot of hype in the OSC community and the OSR conversations around Planar Compass, what you do with the astral plane, what you do with psionics potentially. Tell us a little bit more about kind of you guys' trajectory over the last year. We kind of talked about the difference between your first Zine Quest experience and this one. What are some of the things you guys might attribute that to? Do you think it's just the success of creating a good project that people really respond to, or are there other things that you guys have done that you think have helped build the excitement around this project?
I think connecting with the community is really what's driven us to the success that we have now. The networking of getting to know people, getting to talk to people who are very exciting, fascinating figures in this community who are interested in Planar Compass, and in some cases bringing them on board to issue 2. We've got Jared Sinclair and Micah Anderson, and it's the give and take and getting to like enjoy combining things together that I think has really helped.
Yeah, definitely. I think that because I haven't had the time recently to be as active, but at the time that we did Planar Compass 1, I was pretty active in the OSC Discord. And I think that it felt for a lot of people that it was like this was a project coming out of the OSC community. So it added some excitement at that time, even though we were very small. And then I think it just kind of slowly grew. I think we did definitely try to learn how to market and get it out there. And luckily there's a lot of stores that by like, big business standards are small, but by indie RPG standards are pretty big. And
you're gonna buy 25 copies of my game?
Yeah,
you blew my mind.
Exactly. So I think all of these stores like Exalted Funeral, Monkey's Paw, Spear Witch, their willingness to take a chance on stuff, often sight unseen, is so invaluable for helping the scene grow and helping small creators like us get a foothold, because it's so different when you can point somebody to a website and they can buy your zine alongside 30 other zines than if you just have a Facebook page and you're just trying to say like, hey, check out my thing. It's really hard to go alone. So if you can get any kind of relationship with anybody, it just helps a lot.
Oh, and especially Necrotic Gnome. I mean, we're using, as Old School Essentials, and he will, if you're working in Old School Essentials
Yeah.
setting, he promotes you too.
Yeah.
Gavin's
He's
Gavin's
so
super
very
supportive.
like protective and supportive of the people that are creating content for Old School Essentials, which is fantastic.
Anytime we're doing a stream, anything related to Old School Essentials, I always tag them on Twitter, because I also know that like Gavin will make sure it gets retweeted, gets pushed out. Like he wants people to see what is happening. And I love the kind of openness of that conversation. I'll tell you guys what I'm laughing at in just a second. Don't worry, you'll find out.
I will say, just like to add on to that, I do think a big part of the growth though is the growth of the OSE community as well. Obviously, like their first Kickstarter was huge, but then they had the advanced Kickstarter over the summer, massive.
Yeah.
And I think we have kind of caught the draft off of that a little bit, and I think that's a big reason why we're successful. Even not that other people aren't successful, but we're doing really well, and there's other people making amazing content for other systems that just don't unfortunately get enough attention, just because OSE is almost like a phenomena in the indie scene right now.
Well, I think we're seeing it with a couple systems. I think right now we're seeing it with Troika, with Mothership, especially if you look at Zine Quest with Mothership.
Oh yeah, this is the year of Mothership.
Morkborg is a little bit different, but still does a lot of really cool things for its creators and supporting its creators, but it's in a very kind of different, unique way, which of course it's Morkborg. And then Troika is the other one that we'll see a lot of Melsonian Art Council like doing a lot of support, and it's really cool to see these kind of OSR, whether they're sci-fi, whether they're a little more gonzo, whatever it is, that's all kind of coming out of this OSR indie fusion movement of these certain big brands. We haven't touched this on stream at all, and we don't need to talk about it at all. It's an idea I'm constantly processing through right now. Melsonian asked us to do potentially cover some stuff for them, which is great. I'm super excited about, but one of my things was like, we should be doing more like fests, like kind of like there's game jams where people create like for 3 weeks or a month or along a certain line, but we should be doing more fests where it's like, hey, we're going to create a jam for 3 weeks, but the middle week of that, we're going to do a fest where we're just encouraging people to play this game on streams, in public, with friends, with people who have played before, people who've never played before. Like, we just want to play OSE as much as possible for the week in the middle of this jam. And anything that gets made, like even doing like a Greyhawk style world event where it's like, here's the central theme we want everybody to play with when they're creating stuff or when they're doing other things, but kind of creating this once a quarter, these bigger community movements for some of these games that are a little bit more positioned to say, hey, and now that people can't play Dungeons and Dragons and have a good time, like this, that's great, but that are positioned to introduce players to other systems and to get them to think about things that might
100%.
might be a better fit for them, or might just make their D&D games better once they've played these other systems also and have a little bit more of a lens to look at some things through. So anyways, that's just a dumb idea that I'm kicking around in my head right now, and I've shared a couple of different people.
Yeah.
I love the idea for it. And so people do want to know, really, very importantly, what's the favorite NPC you created ever? And then the second question is, and why is it Jeffrey?
Jeffrey. So Jeffrey is from the 5e campaign, and Lamorak and Lamorak's partner in crime, Chance, who is the player, that is the character of Ben. So Jeff, the long story short is there was a halfling who was a cultist, and there was a pig on this island, and this was the last cultist left alive of the cult, and they basically friendly took him hostage, so he became the companion of the party, and it all boiled down to them having a pig race in the halfling town, and Haffy the halfling was the jockey of the pig, and the pig became Chance's favorite pig. Then the two of them disappeared, and they ended up meeting up with the party years later in real life on the astral plane, and the pig had since been
he'd been through some psychic stuff, man.
Yeah, he had cruelly been given super intelligence by mind flayers, so he resented the fact that the party had treated him like an animal, and he declared that his name was Jeffrey. That's the short
awesome.
story.
Here's what I say, and here's the reason I ask. I do love that, like, this again. This is informed by play. Like, I think one of the thing a lot of designers, when I sit and I talk to them, there's like they're making amazing games and great stuff, and they're never getting to play. And just the fact that y'all have a community to do that with, that's here, that's giving you, that's trolling you mildly, but still here and excited to support you. Like, I think that's a phenomenal sign of also health, just, and keeps designers same. Like, and I think that's so helpful and so wonderful, which is why I'll continue to entertain all the bizarre and gonzo questions that won't make sense to anybody else through the rest of this interview. Let's talk a little bit about what people can kind of expect from Planar Compass 2, the current one that's live on Kickstarter right now. I'm going to pull up the Kickstarter page also too, just kind of as we're looking at that for people. But what are y'all doing specifically within Planar Compass 2 that you're excited about?
We're going places. You are taking your ship on the astral sea, and you are going somewhere. So there's these really great hex flower generators that we've got going on to take your party across the astral sea and to see sights and run away from things that are terrifying, and maybe run towards things that are terrifying that might be worthwhile. So there's a lot of, like, there was a destination in issue 1, and issue 2, the destination is the journey, man.
The destination is adventure.
Yes, indeed.
Awesome. What are some Daniel, what are some of the mechanical things that you're most excited to kind of dig into and crunch on?
Yeah, so I definitely, as Sarah mentioned, the hex flowers, we brought Goblin's henchmen on for issue 2 to help us develop the hex flowers, and there's 2 main sections that deal with it. And the first is astral sailing and navigation, and the second one is a living dungeon that pursues you across the sea, and if it catches you, it gobbles you up, and you end up down inside it, and then you have to use this hex flower to kind of navigate this labyrinthian organic structure and deal with the dangers within. But I think the hex flowers are really interesting because they're not a traditional map. They're a way of generating, almost like tables, but there's something visual that you and the party can interact with, but have a lot more potential than a static map would, I think.
I love it. I'm super excited about the project. I actually just realized that, like, it's one of those projects, since I back everything live, but I don't want everybody to see my credit card information and like set it up and then I don't finish backing. I actually think I was waiting to be on the stream with you guys to decide, because I got just the PDF of issue 1. I don't want to just be living in PDF world. I want that real meat. And I think what I wanted to know was, all right, so I've got 2 tiers here: tier 6 first mate, tier 7 captain. Tell me about some of these higher tiers, right? So I'm gonna come in at least pilot. What are the cool things I'm gonna be getting if I back at pilot versus first mate versus captain? I love you guys, but I don't know the bundle of treasures in the budget. And so
that's fair.
Tell me about those levels and tell me kind of some of the differences between them. I know it's variations on some of the extra kind of resource materials that I'm getting with it, but what are we looking at there?
Sure. So if we were to start at like tier 4 is kind of like, I would say like the basic tier for people that are new, and that'll give you print copies of issues 1 and 2, as well as PDFs of 1 and 2, and a PDF of the player's booklet, which is something we developed after the Kickstarter of issue 1, that we kind of realized we had this content that we wanted to be player facing, but without spoilers. So it's all of the classes, psionics and psionic abilities from issue 1, but without any of the referee facing content. So that's way, it's something you can give your players, and they can reference for their classes and whatnot. So that's tier 4, the quartermaster. Tier 5 is pilot, which is that, but with a print copy of the player's booklet. So hopefully soon we'll all be back to playing around the table again, and then you can physically hand them the print copy, and they can share it amongst themselves or reference and whatnot. Tier 6 adds in a print of the issue 2 cover. So it's kind of like a small poster. If you really like the issue 2 cover art, and I think Chris killed it this time. He killed it last time, but I think this time's even better. You want to have a version of that art without the logos on it, and that has, both the front and the back as something you can look at once. And tier 7 captain will give you all of that plus printed recognition in the book, which is something we did last time. So we have a section near the front of the book where we recognize all these people who have given, kind of this above and beyond backing and support.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just saying the final tier, the one that breaks the bank, is tier 8, and that will allow you, if you want to like put your stamp on it, you can override one of our names for a monster or one of the ship classes, and hopefully you it's something.
Hopefully not do something horrible.
Setting, but we're pretty good. We're pretty amicable about letting people do pretty much whatever they want. So
I mean, that is super tempting.
We work with, it's a give and a take.
My name in a book, not as enticing as I can change one of your names.
Yeah.
Book.
Yeah.
I've certainly gotten it at $100 levels before for that type of creative control for things. So yeah, I think we'll probably go in at one of those levels where we're going to get at least the player facing material, because I love that idea. I love that concept. I love the ability to kind of have those pieces. And again, I missed out on getting the physical last time, and want to make sure that I get those good things. And so and there's plenty of space in my OSE box, like I just toss it in there. And so for now, I guess we'll see what happens when Advanced Fantasy delivers, and all that stuff too. But no, I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited to again watch and it's one of the things I love about Zine Quest. It's one of the reasons why we do what we do. Being able to see somebody come in as a small creator one year who has a project they're excited about, to be able to work through, to be able to fund it, and then the next year to be able to come back and say, hey, we found an audience last year. We've built more community this year, which again, I love that you guys weren't like, well, we upped our Twitter strategy a whole lot, but like you guys were like, no, we spent time in community with people, playing games with people, doing things with people, and that's what's made things successful for us. I think that's the vision that people need to be looking at and following. So I mean, I love hearing that be successful for people. It's again, we want people to be able to find indie games that they're going to love, and indie creators to be able to find players who are going to love their games. So I appreciate you guys coming on and chatting with me about it. Again, if people want to find you guys online, and we know the Kickstarter's up right now, we've actually got a short link right underneath each of your names. It'll take them right to the campaign. So you also get a Kickstarter, type in Planar Compass too. It's not hard. If you do it off Kickstarter, it's hard, but if you do it on Kickstarter, it's easy. And so, but where can they find more about you guys online again?
Yep. So I'm on Twitter at B3L7 and planarcompass.com.
And I am on Twitter at Sarah Eliza Brent and planarcompass.com.
And for all of y'all out there watching who are if you want to get any last trolls in, now's the time. Open shot. Go ahead, give me any questions you want for them. But in the meantime, I'm Tony Vicinda. You can find me at Tony Vicinda across pretty much any social media platform. You can find everything we do at +1exp.com. Again, we're a weird little brand that multi-classes and tabletop game design, beard and skincare alchemy, and the Bardic College of Content Creation. What is the Bardic College of Content Creation, you might add? We're actually having Diego Noguera create a custom OSE class that is going to be a content bard. I have no idea what it's going to look like yet. I think scroll prep, like you can prepare scrolls and then take them into the dungeon with you and either use them yourself or pass them to other party members, I think is going to be a strong feature as a content bard. But we'll see. We'll see what it is. And so, awesome. But you can find everything we do at +1exp on social media, +1exp.com. Again, for all of our products, our game Beards and Beyond just launched and is floating out across the world right now to different people. What is your least favorite piece that I did for the first book from Downifer?
Least favorite. I'm gonna know. Let's go.
What's the chance of? No, it didn't finish. So. Come on, Giblet. You got it. while we're looking for that worst possible piece of art. So,
I wanted to mention that when you talk about the like the collaboration of the community, I think that like one of the things that I liked the most was hearing in one of the Discord servers that somebody was planning on using Planar Compass to like bridge another like content that the Neverland book. They were like, Neverland's just going to be an island on the Astral Sea, and I'm going to take my Planar Compass people and put them over there. And I was like, that is what I want to see. I want to see somebody do Planar Compass and go, yeah, we're just going to go to the Astral Sea and then we're going to go to Muspelheim, you know?
Right.
Like we're going to go here and then
yeah.
we're just going to move on into this territory when we're done with that.
I also have heard about people trying to transition their parties out of 5th edition and into OSC using Planar Compass also too. Like it's like they go to the astral plane and the astral plane has different rules, and whatever plane they come out in again has OSC rules.
Oh, I love that. That's amazing.
Some people are very against that idea. Other people are absolutely delighted by it.
I'm into it.
Yeah.
And then if someone were banished to the astral plane, what is the chance that if someone was banished to the astral plane, they would land somewhere safe?
In our setting, very low. It's a C, so yeah, I would say you're in trouble.
Are they good at swimming?
Yeah. If they're a mer person, they might be okay.
Maybe.
Lady Kaura says, I love the connection Planar Compass can create between different indie zines. Okay, another buck wild idea I have. Ready? You guys ready? This is the first time I'll talk about it on stream. Maybe I talked about it earlier. I'm streaming a lot lately, so there's a lot of things that come out of my mouth that I don't pay attention to. I wanted to do a Make 100 project that was called Zine Quest: The Quest for Zines.
Yeah, I remember you saying this.
And somebody got real pissed at me, but I love the idea. The idea is essentially this: that you would create like a printable zine at home that would basically list out 100 different campaigns. It would have kind of a quest board aspect to it, and you would go there, and when you got there, that person would have agreed to then put up like a prompt on their page to respond to that quest. And it could be like just PBTA. It doesn't matter what it is. Like roll 2d6, depending on how you do. And then you would interact with that page in some manner based on how you rolled. But you would also have something that you did for your character in resolution to that. So it was basically like a solo RPG that you could play through Zine Quest, but it would be a Make 100 project that anybody could get the PDF, but the 100 projects it would feature would be people who paid $10. And everybody was like, somebody was like, that's exploitative. And I was like, I don't know, it might be, but it's also like just a fun way. Like if you're up front with everybody, like here's what you're getting. Like it is just a bunch of Zine Quest projects to go check out later. That's all I'm going to give you. But each of those will have a small gamified piece on it. But it's also a really cool way to connect 100 Zine Quest projects to each other. And I just think it'd be fun.
Yeah, I think it's cool. People get sensitive about referencing other people's content, which I think is fair. But I personally think I don't have a problem with it. Well, someone wants to reference us. It's cool.
My thought would be like, you tell me that you want me to reference your content, not I choose to reference your content, and all of a sudden you're now beholden to me in that way, shape, or form. So yeah, but I love the idea of Planar Compass being like just a place that you can go between zines. Like every single time your characters in, they just get on the ship and go out to sea, and then end up back in Planar Compass.
Chris, I've been through this like backwards and forwards, and I'm having just an impossible time.
So I've got one. I've got it. I've got it. It's the ravioli squids on page 18. Because
I love the air squids.
I can't decide whether I want to eat them or if I'm grossed out by them. So because they actually look like raviolis.
Let's see if that's like even.
That's perfect. Yeah, back a touch.
This right here is Lamorak and Leonid, which I didn't know until after this came out that Leonid is like an anagram of Daniel. So basically, this is my NPC and that's Dan. So I'm gonna complain right now, Chris Downey. You could have made more feathers on Lamorak's boots.
Oh, let's see these ravioli squids for anybody out there.
Oh yeah, hold on. Let me get them. They're tasty.
I love the ravioli.
This is the hard hitting stuff people show up to a prestige class for.
I don't know if I can like.
Yeah, no, there it is.
Oh my gosh, there's 100% of ravioli squid.
Back up.
They look delicious. There's like definitely a calamari meets ravioli. Like it's both an appetizer and the main all in one. Like I'm a big fan. It looks like they're coming out of a bottle of wine there too. Like that's
Yeah, it's a bottle table, random bottles.
it's a whole Italian dinner all in one bottle. And so
It might be the only thing on the bottle table that you want to eat.
so
That's
There's
true.
a thing in there that'll turn you into a bear.
that's awesome. I think if people don't take anything else away from this, which I think there's plenty of lessons to take away from this, I would say this: like I love the collaboration y'all have with each other. I love watching the friendships y'all have with each other, but also just again that community of play that you have surrounding you as you guys go through this. Who showed up today for all this? I think that's the kind of creative community people should be looking for and should be looking to surround yourself with. And whether that's starting with a group of friends and making something, or whether that's saying, hey, as we're making stuff, I want to play with the people I'm making stuff with. I want to play with the artists. I don't want just them to just draw art. I want this to be an actual space that we all gather around and enjoy, and that is life-giving. I think y'all model that so well, and it's something that is absolutely needed in the design community. So thank y'all so much for coming on. I keep on trying to think of a good way to close this. I had one as I drifted off to sleep the other night. I can't remember what it was. So until I figure out what that was, we just kind of wave at the camera until I take the stream off. So we're going to do that right now.
And then
Thank
we
you.
project to the astral plane, right?
And then we project to the astral plane.